I wanted to make a video that gives the summary of the Circling Mastermind format, my understanding of relational intelligence, the process of the acquisition of relational intelligence, its relationship to developmental trauma, and how circling and authentic relating practices are so powerful and valuable for the acquisition of relational intelligence. So a bit of context of how this video happened. I am actually terrible at doing videos. I mean, the production qualities and the audio are probably not great, but it's more than that. It's like I have a hard time reciting content. So when I have prepared content, I kind of freeze and I drop on a presence. And my goal is really to model for you the authentic relating process as I'm shooting, and it's almost impossible, frankly. But what I've done is I sort of pre-recorded some sections of live circles that I've been running. So we're gonna kind of mix them in with the prepared content and see how that goes. Section 1: what is relational leadership and its relationship to developmental trauma? So this is kind of unrehearsed, although I've been sort of running scripts in my head for the last hour or two thinking of what I'm going to say, and it's not sort of a long conversation, but yeah, I just want to give it a shot, so just humor me and see how it goes. And I mean, let me also give the program, for today, as some of you are like structure and goal-oriented like me, like to know what's going to happen. But basically, I'm going to give a little bit of context, and then I think we're going to do what's called focus circles for Kathy, Sylvie, and David. So you're all going to have like at least 10-minute top, focus circles, and I might give just a little bit of context on that after I give sort of the relational leadership. So relational leadership is my prime directive. It's my spiritual practice. It's my career, and it's my enlightenment. Okay, it's an infinite game. Relational leadership is the art of showing up with truth and care in all our relationships, and of winning in relationships. So winning in relationship means that I'd say people like you would be a kind of a simple result of effective relational leadership. But more importantly than that, relational leadership is just being available. It's being emotionally available to understand and listen to empathically and give accurate reflections to people. Okay. So here's the challenge of relational leadership. The challenge of relational leadership is that we are usually so wrapped up in ourselves that it is very difficult to give quality attention to people, first of all. And part of that reason is that we all have what's called developmental trauma. And we are kind of constantly, unconsciously moving through life, trying to get a handle on that. All right. Frequently not realizing it. So one of the keys that you're having developmental trauma would be sort of irritation or obsessive thinking relating to anything, other people or the world. Okay, that's sort of your clue that you're having developmental trauma. Okay, so it's interesting because that's sort of the prepared segment. The stuff that I prepared in my mind for the last hour. And I need to pause and kind of go more spontaneous here. It's scary for me to give content because I'm afraid of freezing up, like I'm sort of frozen right now, okay? And at the same time, this is perfect because this illustrates the process of acquiring relational intelligence. You acquire relational intelligence through being present and revealing what is going on inside you, while simultaneously having focus or attention on others. Okay. So once again, now I feel myself rushing and a little bit frozen. And I'm noticing myself like this is very, very passionate. I'm very, very passionate about this topic because most people don't know this. It's very, very simple, but most people don't know it. They don't know that they're going through life unconsciously seeking to resolve developmental trauma. Okay. That may be enough for today. There's so much more, but I can't articulate it, and I'm too frozen right now. So I hope that's helpful.
Okay, so we're back into a scripted mode here. That was actually kind of funny, I thought. And I want to see if I can give you the missing elements that I wasn't able to articulate in that impromptu session. So the first thing I want to say, in case it's not obvious, is that relational intelligence is perhaps the most valuable skill in the world right now. Not necessarily in terms of income, although that too, but principally in terms of happiness. And I don't know if you follow Martin Seligman and the authentic happiness movement, but happiness is most correlated to three things according to Martin Seligman. One is what he calls faith, which could also be considered a value system or a belief system that gives life meaning. The second thing is what he calls marriage, which would be like primary sexual relationship. And the third is community, sort of the quality of your close relationships. And so that you can easily see that if, since obviously relational intelligence is correlated to the quality of your primary relationship or primary relationships, if you be so inclined, and to the quality of your friendships and community, it is the most important factor in your happiness. So let's move on to the next segment here, which relates to some of the blocks or the obstacles to the acquisition of relational intelligence. And I've already given one, which is developmental trauma. I want to slightly expand on that as well. And by the way, I am truly feeling completely inadequate in making this video, and I'm sort of partly amused at how nervous and uptight and frozen I am here, and hoping that as we keep on going I will become more natural and just having more fun with it. So wish me luck there. So let me start by just giving just a bit larger context around developmental trauma. Developmental trauma happens when your natural meaning-seeking and connection-seeking impulses are frustrated. So there's personal developmental trauma, which is maybe personal experiences you've had, painful experiences, sicknesses, growing up in a dysfunctional family, whatever. And also sort of the challenges that come from your characterology, which I will expand on in a moment. And there's ancestral trauma and cultural trauma. Cultural trauma, it's a very large topic, and I only have space to brush on it here briefly, but growing up under patriarchy and capitalism, which is essentially the latest instantiation of patriarchy, we are fundamentally made to feel shame for our humanity. So there are certain human needs, most actual real human needs, are considered unacceptable under patriarchy. We can't talk about it. Our loneliness, our desire for connection, our desire for sensual and sexual expression, our desire for freedom. These needs are kind of taboo, and we are made to believe that our value as human beings comes from our production, essentially. And we are made to believe that if we buy into the system, that we will achieve success and happiness, and that if we fail to achieve success and happiness, it is our fault. As anyone can see, there's so much opportunity. We're living the American dream. You know, there are so many happy and successful people, right? So this is kind of a delusion that we all buy into, because the bottom line is there's not a lot of happy people in Western culture. Okay, that's the simple truth. That's the elephant in the room that nobody wants to name. So this is a big topic that I feel very passionate about, and I will give in the subtitles a link to an article I've written on that. And I'm only saying this so that you understand that in achieving relational intelligence and from their success and happiness, the deck is stacked against you. So what I'm proposing here in the acquisition of relational intelligence is actually a revolutionary act. You're not just changing yourself. You're changing the entire culture. You're changing everyone you touch potentially by essentially realigning your life according to real human needs and real human values, as opposed to cultural norms that are actually destructive of our attempt to to reach true fulfillment and true contribution, belonging, and the things that human needs really want. So I'll stop there rather than go on a political diatribe and proceed with the practical aspects of this. All right, moving on. So I'm noticing that I'm having fun with this, for the moment at least. And also fearful that I'm talking too much. However, if I did not give you the social political context of the work that I do and the work that we do in the circling masterminds, I would be failing you. So having put that on the table as promised, let's move on to the more personal aspects of recovery from developmental trauma. And particularly these are the challenges that are relating to your characterology. And I think the best way to illustrate that problem would be to explain the challenges that I face in my characterology of becoming an effective relational leader. So this is tricky to explain, but extremely important. Remember the prime directive or the root context of relational leadership, which is to show up in truth and care in all your relationships. Now, if you do this correctly, you will be effective. People will appreciate you. They will want to be your friend. You will notice them transform in front of you, and also you yourself will transform through the process. And if you observe anything else in the interaction, you observe people getting triggered by you. You observe people shutting down in front of you, or God forbid you notice yourself getting agitated or triggered or angry or judgmental with other people, that indicates a failure of relational leadership, and by definition it is a failure of yours to show up for them in truth and care. All right? And this is actually the beauty and power of the practice, because everyone grows from it, whatever side of the triggering you're on. If you're able to learn and grow and adapt to what's going on. And let me get very specific here of what happens with me in relation to other people, and where I fail as a relational leader. So specifically, my characterology is I'm on the bipolar spectrum, and I'm also on the autism spectrum. And at the same time, I have very pressing contact needs. And I tend to be, let me be direct, a bit of a dick with people when I'm wanting a certain quality of connection, I'm wanting a certain quality of emotional expression, of ownership of experience, of willingness to show up, and that doesn't happen. And I tend to essentially blame other people and be angry at them when they're not showing up how I want them to show up. And this is kind of ridiculous. This is an example of very bad relational leadership, and this is sort of my developmental challenge, something I'm constantly working on, is that I get pissed off when people don't show up how they want them to be. All right, this is a fundamental failure of relational leadership for for obvious reasons. And I tend to be worse, or more of a dick, or more aggressive, more judgmental, more demanding, more impatient when I'm unhappy. So I've been not very happy most of my life. There's been a lack of connection and a lack of sexual expression and a lack of meaning and purpose, shall we say. And I have a kind of urgency about fulfilling these needs, right? I call it the 40-year war against myself and against the world, trying to make a buck and get a little love, mostly unsuccessfully. I've not had a very happy life. And there was a fundamental shift about 5 years ago when I learned the circling practice and I started practicing, and it's been like a very, very rapid developmental journey since then, both in understanding myself and how I relate to people and trying to moderate the negative aspects of my characterology. The primary negative aspect of my characterology is I get angry with people when they don't rise to the expectations I have of them, right? And that's absolutely the stupidest thing in the world. I mean, people are, they are the way they are for a reason, and they're doing their best all the time. And, also maybe some people don't want the level of intimacy or engagement that I'm seeking, and maybe they're not capable of it, right? So that's just an example of how one's characterology will impede your growing to true relational leadership or true authenticity. And everyone is different. I like to make a distinction between people who are sort of on the narcissism side, like me, and people on the codependent or compromised autonomy side. People on the narcissism side tend to blame others for something bad that happens or for needs not being met, whereas people on the codependent side tend to blame themselves if needs are not being met. So it's kind of but regardless, it's very important to understand your characterology, what you're bringing to the game, and how that reflects a blind spot, as we call it. And so you basically can compensate. So in my case, basically, I need more slowness, I need more kindness, I need more patience. Even just at the level of my pace, I need to speak less quickly with people, and I need to, when I start getting irritated, just remind myself that it's not anybody's job to meet my needs. So to step back, have a little humility, and sort of understanding what I'm putting into the space. Okay, so that's it. This may be my developmental work for the rest of my life. I'm not sure. We'll find out. But the main point I want to make is whatever your characterology is, there are no bad characterologies. Every characterology has gifts. So the gifts of the gift of the narcissist. I'm not a full-blown narcissist, but I'm somewhere on that scale. The gift of the narcissist is like very, very clear direction and a lot of insight and a lot of intellectual understanding of people. Okay, good. So that covers my understanding of relational leadership and its relationship to developmental trauma and to one's characterology. And we'll move to the next section now, which is a description of the circling practice, and specifically the practice of focus circling and how that works in the acquisition of relational intelligence. And we'll start with the live segment as well.
And I promise you all, I give you context for the topic circles that are coming up next. So topic circles are, sorry, not topic circles, focus circles. There's several different types of circles, but focus circles are my preferred format, because you can get significant insight and intimacy and transformation in a fairly short time. Like 10, 15 minutes actually works pretty good, as hopefully you'll discover today. 10 minutes is kind of pushing it. So just be aware of that. All right. But a topic circle, we are essentially focusing all of our attention as a group on the person being circled. So we are essentially trying to get their world and feel what it's like to be them. Okay, we want to understand how they think and feel. Thinking and feeling are both important. Circling doesn't necessarily have a higher value on one or the other, unlike some other modalities. All right. So we listen to them, we try and understand them, and we communicate. I mean, the reason I like the short focus circles is a focus circle is a complete, authentic relating process or exchange, because it has the two parts. It has sort of the vulnerability, the sharing, the revealing, okay, the offering up one's internal world to others, which is a very generous act, of course. Okay. And then the reflection, which is the care and the truth of how we relate to that person, of how we experience that person. Okay. And most people, if not all of us, are very eager to know how we affect other people, but we're afraid to ask. Okay. And so typically in a 10-minute focus circle, you'll speak for about half the time. In this case, would be 5 minutes, and then you will receive reflections or impacts for the second part of the circle. Okay, and the reflections is it's the second part of the authentic relating process. Okay, and it's how this person affects you. If it's thoughts or emotions that arise in you in response to what this person says, but in a very specific way, which is reflections are designed to serve the other person. Okay, so if you have a thought that if you're not quite sure whether this is going to be useful to them, you can either be silent or you can name that. You can say, I don't know if this is useful to you, but I just feel compelled to say it. All right. So that's the reflection process. If in your reflection you're providing coaching or advice giving, that's allowed, but it's good to name it. Okay, so in circling, everything is allowed, but we want to surface. We want to surface what's actually happening all the time, ideally. Okay. All right, that's it. Let's do a reflection. Let's do a reflection round on that.
So that's it. That's the download I wanted to give you. 25 minutes, not bad. Considering this is my entire worldview and life and spirituality and circling, which is the process I love and I intend to do for the rest of my life, hopefully, continuously. And just as a little bit of context, it's early 2022, and I'm in my RV on the edge of the prairie in a egalitarian commune in Wyoming. I call it a little house on the prairie. I've been here for 6 months because I'm also passionate about intentional community and the application of intentional community to the application of relational intelligence to intentional community and to social change. And I'm off to Guatemala in a couple days to try my hand at in another setting. And living here has been immensely frustrating and immensely rewarding both. But it's been an extraordinary developmental experience for me, and I look forward to many more. And yeah, that's it. Reach out to me, please, from my website, circlingguide.com. I do offer free appointments if you're curious or you want to explore this, these topics one-on-one. Okay, bye for now.